manager position, and then to cancel the part-time Main Street coordinator position, which was in the original recommendation, and then add money for facade grants and professional design for the Main Street Advisory Board. In the hotel motel tax, recommending $14,000 for downtown tourism, subject to an agreement for services with Perry Chamber of Commerce. Adding $5,000 for special event tourism promotion of the city itself. And then the other funds, which you can see on there, are just making some adjustments relative to support services. And in addition to that, second item I advised you on is taking a look at the April revenues for the general fund. We will be able to make an adjustment to retain the part-time special events coordinator. That's the manager's recommendation after you've heard all the responses from the different departments and agencies about everything else in the recommended budget is recommended Tuesday. Any of the other items that they may have asked for are not recommended by the manager. I will have for you tomorrow just a listing of how each of the funds are, bottom line, each of the funds are impacted by it, but it's very minimal. There's no real substantial change in any of the funds from what you have.
Any questions, council? Okay. Item 382 is the planning direction order. Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, also in your board pack is a copy of an article from the June 2018 Governing Magazine, in which they talk about the importance of cities. In this particular case, they were talking about Philadelphia, but they're applied to any city, about where neighborhoods that are referred to neighborhoods in the middle, which means they're not real well-to-do or they're not real poor, demanding social services and everything, have a tendency to sometimes be overlooked. I'm providing this to you just for some information and also based on the fact that this is not the direction that you all operate under. You have indicated that all neighborhoods in Perry are important. We try to keep up with all of them, and just wanted to provide this to you to show you that once again you are ahead of the curve. Now, there may be some references occasionally, unless y'all have some issues with this, about some improvements in neighborhoods that we may recommend that you would not automatically think, but it's going to go back on the deal to continue to stabilize neighborhoods or possibly improve them. For example, there may be a focus on some code enforcement, on one particular street because it looks like it's having a rollover problem, something like that. I'm not aware of anything right offhand. Please don't take this in any neighborhood area is any better, any worse than others. I'm not meaning that, but every single one of them has some type of issue that we need to watch and take.
Thoughts or questions, council? Thank you for the information, Mr. Gilmore. Item 383 is a resolution establishing the city of Perry annexation policy. Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. In your package, you have a copy of a resolution that, after discussion, we would like to have roll over onto your meeting tomorrow, unless there's something you want to, unless you don't want to, you want to make some type of amendments with it. But this goes back and follows up the discussion you may remember that we had at your last work session relative to the city's annex policy. The city does not have a formal annexation policy, and the administration is recommending council that you adopt one. What's recommended to you is, you can see there are two different sections. The first one is when we are petitioned by a parcel owner or authorized agent. You may remember that this is how we get most of our annexation requests coming in. And we're recommending that the policy would be that the parcel has to be in the City of Perry service area. It's possible for the city to provide at least one of its municipal services. The planned land use is compatible with the city's comprehensive plan. The annexation will not cause undue financial or operational burden to the citizens or residents of Perry and is legal to annex, which pretty much is what you follow anyway. The second portion is that the City of Perry shall annex on its own initiative when the parcel or parcels of the Perry service area per the current service delivery strategy. The city can provide at least one municipal service. It's legal to annex. A possible change of use would be better served if the parcel is annexed, and it is most cost-effective for the delivery of local services if the city is a provider. You may remember we just had an incident with that on Macon Road, Great Lake Area Parkway. And if that sounds acceptable to you, we recommend that you all adopt that as your annexation practice.
Thoughts, questions, council? Anybody? I'm assuming the consensus is to move it forward for a vote tomorrow night. Okay. Item 3A4 is the provision of health insurance for part-time employees. Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and council, also in your packet is a follow-up on the discussion that you had at your last work session, which just gives the status of city-funded health and dental insurance coverage per the different types of groups. We have full-time employees, and we describe in there what we do with them. We have the part-time positions, we describe what happens with them. We have seasonal positions, we describe what happens with them. We have the 7 elected officials, we describe what the city currently does on that. And we have 1 appointed position, and we describe what the city does on that. And the other thing is that, and this is by year, because we just got it back, the survey results, that one of the other things that was asked for the elected officials was to check with other cities that are in our pay range group as to what they do with elected officials. Does everybody have that or see that right by their spot there? So that just gives you an idea about what the cities who responded to the survey did. And this is what was asked for, as a background information to go to you all from your last work session, so that's what we're providing to you.
Questions, comments, council? Good information. Thank you. Item 3A5 is a review of the Georgia Department of Transportation grant. Mr. Smith.
Mayor and council, we were made aware probably 2 or 3 weeks ago that the Georgia Department of Transportation is making some funding available to local governments or communities of less than 200,000 people to fund alternate transportation type projects. Now, knowing that we have an alternate transportation plan in place, and knowing that some of y'all's primary visions for the city relates to connectivity, sidewalks, alternate transportation type projects, that type of thing, we thought it'd be worth looking into a little bit more. What you have on your board pack today is a memo from Mr. Gilmore outlining a little bit about the grant program. We wanted to bring this before y'all for your discussion, as it's a time-sensitive matter. We wanted to kind of get feedback from y'all in regards to possibly pursuing one of these projects. A couple of things about this grant to keep in mind. We would need to have something in place by August 31st if we were to choose to move forward with this.
What do you mean something?
A project idea in place, and that project would need to be ready to go in FY19. Another thing here is we're looking at a pretty significant project. Project costs are at a minimum $1 million with a 20% match. So this could be a big type project. It's of course competitively funded. One of their focuses, as specifically mentioned in the call for proposals, are traditional downtowns being a priority. So if we wanted to look at possibly doing something downtown in regards to connectivity, alternate transportation, something like that, I think Perry would be a good fit. But really, biking, walking, sidewalks, getting connectivity, that's kind of what they're looking for here. So we wanted to come to y'all to A, let you know that this funding is available, and B, see if you wanted to possibly pursue applying for this funding.
Yes.
Okay, all right. No, it's. I think it's something that you guys put out there, something we can possibly take advantage of. I think it could be good for us. You got the walking trail plan, the alternate transportation plan. So this is right in our wheelhouse in regards to what we're looking at doing as a city. So Mr. Gilmore has a couple of project ideas there. Administration is recommending just sidewalk connectivity in general, be what we pursue here. So I didn't know if there's any discussion that y'all wanted to have prior to us putting some stuff together for y'all to look at in future meeting.
With the road from Sam Nunn to, what would it be, Thompson or North Parkway? Would that be one of the eligible projects?
No.
No.
Not for the,
Vehicular type projects, like standard roadways and things, really is not what we're looking for here. It's alternate transportation.
if the road were already in and it didn't have a sidewalk,
Yes. Or if you wanted to have bike lanes or something like that, that could also be something.
Well, we've identified that there's some action that needs to be taken down on Carroll Street with some of our utilities and stuff like that. We've talked a long time about putting different type lighting and stuff like that, so this might be an opportunity to seize upon, bring opportunities to do some of that work as well.
Yes, sir.
I think it would be, like you said, find out what best fit that would be able to put it there, and that'd be more feasible for everyone, you know. I think Mr. Gilmore got something that we'll look at it and see that this is the best fit for the city.
it's the consensus of the council to pursue it.
Great, we'll get something back to y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 3.6 is a proposal to adjust, a proposal to adjust the annual performance measurement.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and council, in your board pack is a memo from me following up on a request from the mayor and the mayor pro tem relative to taking a look at our annual performance evaluation form and seeing what could be done, or the annual evaluation, and seeing what could be done to incorporate different types of performance measurements. In order to do this, we initially did two things. First thing was, you can see there, we contacted a number of human resource consultants to determine what product they offered. Most of them had nothing or less than nothing, or what they did have was manipulation of data based on information you already had. So there wasn't any place really for us to go on that. The second thing we did was we contacted, again, the standard cities in our pay range group to find models for consideration. Part of my memo has the attachment there, Exhibit B, which gives you the responses. Once again, there wasn't a whole bunch, it was all over the place, but most of them don't have anything as specific as what the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem had asked for. So what we did was we went back and we are providing some general outline things we'd like you all to consider, and if you feel that this is a good starting point, then that's what we will start incorporating. First one would be, I also provided to you, just to give you some idea about what the standard evaluation form that the city uses for annual evaluations currently. Although some departments will use others that are more extensive or focused on some particular areas. But what we would be recommending to council that you would hopefully be agreeable to incorporate. The first item is to add in annual expectations for the employee. In other words, when the employee has his or her annual evaluation, the person doing the annual evaluation will provide a list of expectations. This is what we'd like you to do. This is what we think the direction you need to go in. These are some things you need to work on. You see what I mean? But it'd be individualized for each of the particular employees. The second area.
Can I ask a question? This says that this evaluation, okay, provide the employee with a set of expectations for performance and evaluate at the end of the employment year things, how well they've done against
Right.
the establishment of those goals and objectives at the first of the planning process.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. I mean, if you all agree with that, then one of the things that we've done is as soon as an employee comes in and do the initial sign-up and everything, they'll be kind of, I would say generic, but first relative to the department about, well, here's the expectation. You know, if you're first coming as a police officer, here are some of the expectations we expect you to do in your first year as being a police officer, or public, whatever the case may be. Then when you come up for the next evaluation, which would be in 1 year's time, you go back and, number one, evaluate how well the employee met those expectations for the year, and then in conjunction with the employee, we'll talk about some of the other type of stuff, what the expectations are for the upcoming year.
So in other words, you're saying that, if I come in as a new employee, you're gonna tell me what I'm expected, but you're not gonna examine me, evaluate me for a whole year? Or you gonna do it, monitor me every 6 months, every 3 months, every quarter, to let me know, okay, Mr. King, you're getting off?
No, you would go through, I mean, that'd be one of the things the supervisor would have to do. I mean, if somebody's just blatantly not making the expectation, we're not gonna wait for a year and go, well, let's go, you're out.
That's right, okay.
You know, they're gonna be expected to, if they're falling or failing. Now, some of the stuff may be, it's not the employee's fault. You know, for example, you know, for a firefighter, you know, one of the things we expect you to do is to take this certain type of class.
Right.
Well, the employee tries to do that, there's no room in the class or any of that type, well, okay, fine, I mean, that's not the employee's issue. You know, if one of the expectations is that we expect that you are going to be ready to go almost all the time when your shift starts, and for some reason that employee's had issues making it to work on time. See what I mean, whatever the case may be, we're not gonna wait for the whole year, but we're gonna say, hey, you're not making your expectations.
Is it documented anywhere where those interim evaluations or documentation occurs?
Yes.
Based on the supervisors?
Yes, they have to provide a copy of it, and certainly will underneath this deal, they have to provide copies to personnel.
Okay, is there a component for the needs improvement?
Yes, that would be part of the expectation too.
There it is. I'm just looking at what I see so far, I didn't see that.
That would be part of the expectation.
I'm just look, I know I'm just looking at everybody else's.
Any other questions on that aspect, or at least right now?
I'm just looking at all the different ones that you shared with me.
Okay, the second area would be if the employee is an active participant, which in essence means a team player. You know, how well do they cooperate and work with the work group that they're in? How well do they cooperate and work with other groups in the department, other city employees, you know, whatever the case may be. Third area to take a look at would, although we do that, but it's not formally listed, is the career track advancement. You know, for the employee, and this also kind of ties back into expectations, but you know, if you want to advance on the career track, I mean, here's what you need to be doing. So for example, if we have somebody comes into Public Works, you know, we advise them very early on the deal about, well, if you want to advance up, you're going to have to get a CDL driver's license. And you know, so they know and they're aware of that on a regular, ongoing basis. This also would apply to any of the in-classification adjustments that they may be eligible to get, which they would have to do. Next area would be with the job skills. You know, how well is the employee picking up the skills to operate and maintain whatever equipment it is that they're provided. You know, every one of our employees has some type of equipment that's provided to them and some type of expectation. How well do they deal with safety? How proficient are they on the use of the equipment? You know, those type of things. Next area would be initiative. You know, what type of ideas, suggestions, activities does the employee do? You know, what observations do they have to assist in other areas, all that type of stuff. What do they see? You know, for example, when they're going out, you know, like if we have a street light that's out, the patrol folks are constantly going down that street. Well, initiative would be they let us know that that street light is out. You see what I mean? Whatever the case may be. And then it's the last one listed here, but probably is the most important one, I think, on this deal, is go in and say, what are the employee's goals? Where does he or she want to go? What does he or she want to progress in? What is it that they want to do?
Council, does this look like a usable system?
Those
It's a good start. Good work. I think the consensus is to proceed.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would like to go back to the mayor's point on the annual evaluations. I think that needs to be outlined in there, that especially if you have a new employee, that there's gotta be certain periods that this is reviewed to them, either at 90 days or, interim reports, but you might, full-time employee, you might only talk about it once a year, in the middle of the year, 6 months. And I would think that you'd have continuous coaching going on anyway, depending on how the employee's doing, but I think you have to have documented interim report periods that setting the expectation for the supervisor.
Ours is a year. But what Mr. Walker's saying is there needs to be interim assessments during that first year instead of waiting until,
Makes sense.
and I agree.
I agree with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, more in the probation period,
Right.
but ongoing all the time.
So, I mean, once they're through probation, twice a year is probably adequate enough. If you have a really good session to start with, and then 6 months into that interim report, then at the end of the year, so you've got two, set the goals and wait at the end of the year and say, well, didn't check it, but you didn't do very well,
Okay. Mr. Gilmore, one other point. We probably do this anyway, but anytime that there's a policy change or a new event or occurrence, whether it's policy or otherwise, that it has to do with an employee, whether it's benefits or something else, I want to make sure that we're disseminating information to our employees regarding those types of changes and that they acknowledge in writing that they have received that information and understand it. And I know we do that when the employees are first hired, they're going to sign something that they've read, the personnel policies, all of that stuff. But when we make changes, I think it's just as important to make sure existing employees do the same thing across the board, that they have read and understand whatever that is. We may be doing that now, I don't know, but I want to make sure that that's covered too.
I know we do whenever there's any of the major personnel changes that council does, but we'll make sure that any of the things are covered. Now, just want to give a cautionary on that deal. We will provide it to the employee, we'll explain it to the employee. I don't want to guarantee the employee understands it.
The important part there is that they have signed a document saying that they have
That's right.
received it, and it'll say they understand it, but that's on them at that point.
That's right.
Plus, you're gonna make sure they have a copy of it. Right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Thank you, sir. Item 3B is the Community Development Department. 3B1 is the status of proposed sewer projects. Mr. Murph, you got some big numbers in here.
Yes, sir, I do. I'm ready to explain it.
I've already read enough.
Forgive me, I'm gonna see if I can work the PowerPoint here. When it gets pulled up. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Turn it on the left side, sir. On the left side of your device. Just slide it up so it'll turn on the left side.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Gilmore, appreciate the opportunity to be here today. The city has quite a few tasks ahead of them. And we have been tasked to identify 4 projects that will not only address existing needs from wastewater standpoint, but also potential needs for growth. The 4 projects that we will be discussing today, Perry Pump Station upgrade improvements, Ball Street Gravity Sewer infiltration inflow rehabilitation, Cambridge Drive and Forest Hill Avenue sewer capacity evaluation, and the Bear Branch Pump Station evaluation. I would like to point out a couple of things. As the economy gets better, we are seeing on the construction side that costs are escalating. We have included, as we begin to talk about opinion of probable costs, very conservative numbers. So I want to assure you of that to begin with. I'd rather give you a bad case and come up good than give you a best case scenario and come up bad, especially with the changing times. Also, we definitely understand too, we have taken a lot of time with Mr. Smith, Mr. Bryan, Mr. McMurray, and other staff in preparation of those numbers. We understand that these are public funds, and we take that very seriously. So we want to make sure that whatever is done in coordination with the city and the best interests of the city residents. On slide 2, this is a brief of the scope of work for the pump station improvement projects. I'm going to use these as talking notes and just go to the location map. The 4 pump stations in question are the Valley Drive Pump Station, the Highway 41 North Pump Station, Wooden Eagle Pump Station, and Wind River Pump Station. The city was challenged with a variety of items with these pump stations, especially from emergency backup pumping. Not a single of these stations at this time have emergency backup pumping on site, meaning a generator. And as part of the task, we were to design and discuss alternatives for generation on site. What currently happens when power goes out, we have a power failure, whether that's a lightning strike or whether that's a control issue or the actual grid goes down, is ESG will get a call, they'll go out with a mobile backup pump, they'll start it up, and it has to stay on site until the issue is resolved with the power. What this will allow is for the generators to kick on immediately. So there is no loss in power of the station. So therefore, it reduces the likelihood of things like spills have to be dealt with at the local and then at the state level. And then also gives redundancy. It gives redundancy to the pumping station's ability to stay online and to be able to continue to deliver that flow downstream and ultimately to the Frank Satterfield wastewater treatment plant. I've included a few photos of what the current conditions of these lift stations are. They're very well maintained. ESG does a very good job of maintaining these stations the way that they are. One of the other tasks that we have at the 41 North pump station is it's currently using a suction lift pump. And it was decided based on the expected flows of future development as well as the current design of the station to change that to a submersible pump station. This was actually identified by the previous engineer, was delivered to the city and ESG, and the concurrence was that a submersible pump station was in the best interest of the city. Upon evaluation of their recommendations, we agreed that a submersible station was a good fit based on the expected flows. So why make the change? Well, one of the more considerations goes back to the operational ability and functionality of the system itself. To be able to utilize the existing infrastructure and increase capacity without making major changes. So that was one of the things that was accomplished in our design of this. Our opinion of probable cost of 4 pump stations, again, is conservative. We feel that it's conservative. We feel that as everything is now, with good contractors going after the work, that the city will not have to pay $771,000 for these improvements. However, we can't foretell the future. But we do feel that these are conservative. These were passed along to city and ESG staff. They were reviewed. We reviewed them internally. We feel that that is a good budget number to start from. and then in a public bid, see where the competitive nature takes us. This project is bid ready. We are ready with the city's approval to proceed with advertising. Next project, any questions? I know this is a lot of information.
What's the time frame, assuming we go forward with it? How long
Yes,
does it
sir.
take to complete it?
Yes, sir. Assuming that we bid the project the 1st of July, there's a 30-day bid period. The bids will be reviewed and the recommendation will be given. If the city accepts the recommendation of award in their August council session, then we have an execution of contracts that'll take us through September. We could look at beginning construction in October. Because a lot of the information, the materials will have to be ordered, we're probably looking at somewhere between a 12 to 16-week delivery time. So that'll put us February of next year before they'll ever start installing the equipment. The good news is a lot of the demolition work can be done prior to that, and the systems, these pump stations can utilize their bypassing abilities as they are now. Upgrades can be complete. Construction may take 30 days, may take 60 days, but we're expecting project completion more than likely by March, April of next year. Yes, sir. Our next project that we were tasked with is the Ball Street Gravity Sewer Basin Infiltration Inflow Study. The city has taken on a proactive stance with infiltration inflow, trying to reduce the amount of flow that's reaching the Frank Satterfield plant. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one is your capacities of the existing pipes that are in the ground are at their highest, and sometimes the capacity has gone over what they can handle. But on the back end of that, the less flow that comes through the pipe and reaches the plant, your operation costs at the plant decrease. Less run times for pumps, less run times for other types of equipment, and it helps with the functionality of the plant itself. And the I&I program is a great tool to be able to utilize existing infrastructure, close the gaps, so to speak, of stormwater being able to enter the pipes and get downstream to the plant. So this was one of the projects that we were tasked with, and we prepared a infiltration and inflow study of this basin, which includes Jernigan, Ball, Washington, and Evergreen Streets. What we did as part of that evaluation is a closed circuit television investigation. Actually send a video camera through each pipe to tell us where our breaks, the corrosion of the pipe, the degradation of the pipe. Everything on Ball Street and in these areas were clay pipe that were put into the ground 40, 50, 60 years ago. They have well outlasted their expected life and are starting to have cracks, root intrusion, and sinkholes have developed over time in several areas. The city has already made some repairs based on this evaluation that were considered important and public safety hazard. In our report, we prioritized recommendations based on the information that was gathered during that study. I think it'd be best to show it, these areas on an aerial map. So you can see Main Street and downtown, all of this flow that comes by Tollison over to Evergreen Street, Duncan Avenue is going down Ball Street and ultimately ends at the 30-inch gravity sewer that takes flow to the Frank Satterfield wastewater treatment plant. In that investigation, we were able to prioritize where we felt the most needs were. They were put into our report and provided to the city. As a part of our coordination based on the recommendations that were provided, we were able to summarize these for you today. There is some piping that is in some swamp areas that needs to be replaced. It's actually about 12 inches below the grade. Some root intrusions cause it to be open. It's actually taking in a lot of storm water when it rains. That was one of the highest priorities that we had. And we're looking at using a technology called cast-in-place pipe. And what that basically is a nylon sock that's pulled through the pipe. It has a concrete texture to it that when it hardens, becomes the pipe. And so therefore, we're not having to replace any pipe that is under a roadway. There will be no minor traffic disruptions. There will be no open trenching that will be in residential areas. The pipe replacement that we're talking about is actually here. That's in a wooded area. Everything to the north of that will all be cast-in-place pipe. We actually have a section on Evergreen Street that was initially left out of our investigation, but ESG and city staff asked that we take a look at that as part of this project. So as part of this project, we can include the contractor to do closed circuit television and provide that information over for review. And if there are any repairs that need to be made, that can be handled under this contract or moved on as a next project for the city's I&I program. All in all, we have roughly about 8,905 linear feet of pipe that will be received cured in place of pipe. That is a lot of pipe. Pipe sizes range from 8, 10, and 12 inch. But again, as part of this process, minor traffic disruptions, less likelihood of erosion and sedimentation control issues, less disruption for school traffic, buses, parents, businesses, things of that nature. The city has reviewed these plans. We are finalizing them to be bid as early as July. So that also can be taken care of. Right now, this project is not phased. It is not broken out. Coordination with the city staff so far is to bid the project out, see where the numbers fall. If we need to break it apart, we can do that in a negotiation with the contractor at that point. Again, we feel that our numbers are conservative. We feel that this project can be done less for $750,000. We've included as part of this estimate a 5% contingency for any unknowns that occur at this point before we get to the final bid documents. So it's an important project as part of the city's I&I program. Ultimately, the city will save money by sending less flow to the Frank Satterfield wastewater treatment facility. And we're utilizing the pipes that are already existing and the easements that are already existing so that there'll be less disruption to the public. Any questions?
Any, you go back to the old and this one too, I'm not saying go back, I'm just saying.
Yes, sir.
What was the median? 771. Is any of this piping need to be enlarged because the city is growing?
No, sir, not necessarily. We did take a look at that. This particular area is pretty much built out. Or if there are any others, I'll show you. This wooded area down here is basically swamp. That's, this is the Big Indian Creek here. This is very low-lying land with wetlands, probably less, not very entertaining to development. I'm sure it could occur if they wanted to, but they would have access to the trunk line to get sewer. So therefore, not much need for development. All of this being Collison, if that were ever in the future, not a mill and needed upgrades, that's something that's unknown at this time. Yes, sir. Any other questions? The next project was the Cambridge Drive and Forest Hill Avenue sewer capacity evaluation. A little bit of background on this project. The previous consultant did an evaluation of the gravity sewer in this area. What they found was some overflows based on feedback from city and ESG staff. There were manholes that were overflowing during periods of high rain. As part of the city's I&I program, they made some recommendations to handle the flow, as well as continue with the I&I rehab, trying to find these areas of I&I that were occurring. They didn't take into account, though, potential development within the basin, specifically the Cherokee Pines area. Recent development potentially may allow for more residential and commercial development in several areas. The original study looked at 2 or 3 alternatives. We looked at 9, heavily coordinated with the city staff. One of the recommendations was to improve the existing gravity sewer. Others were to include pump stations and pump into other basins or pump all the way down to the main trunk line. There were a lot of back and forth with the city on how this is best handled to accommodate future growth. We will get to it, but there was only one alternative that was discussed and coordinated that would handle all of the city's needs and not rely on any other alternative to be complete with it. This is a map showing the different pipe materials throughout the basin, but what we are looking at really is this area in question up here is the Cherokee Pines Country Club, as it is. Everything is flowing from Cherokee Pines down across Highway 341, coming through an older, old historic area, coming down parallel to Ball Street, actually a street over, and it ends up in the trunk line. The reason that the pipes are outside of I&I issues is they've already reached their capacity. Even if there were no infiltration and inflow of stormwater, they are at their brink. So what we've taken into account is we've worked with the city on potential development within the area. We've identified roughly 268 acres that could be developed. Doesn't necessarily mean that it will be. Could be developed in this basin. And as you can see, these areas up here, there's Cherokee Pines. We've identified some areas on Houston Lake Road, Kings Chapel Road. There's quite a few areas that potentially have some new development in it. Total capacity that would be added to the system, assuming that growth occurred, is roughly about 264,000 gallons per day addition to what it's already seen now. So if we look at some of the numbers, in summary, the current flow through the 12-inch interceptor is roughly peak flow of 1.08 million gallons per day. What we take away from that is the maximum capacity for a 12-inch pipe at minimum slope is 1.08. That doesn't include infiltration and flow. So that explains the reason why during heavy periods of rain, manholes are overflowing. Downstream and some bottlenecks. So that's summarizing what we already knew. But the potential for future growth, we're looking at adding that 264,000 gallons per day. And what we are looking at is a maximum capacity of a 16-inch pipe at minimum slope is 1.8 million. And of a 14-inch pipe, it would be 1.4 million. Now, from the growth that is expected outside of infiltration and inflow issues that we know exist, we are projecting this to be right at the maximum capacity of a 14-inch pipe. The cost difference between a 14-inch and 16-inch pipe is minimal. Just our recommendation that we presented to the city for consideration and ESG is to go with the 16-inch pipe. To guarantee larger capacity, it will handle all flow coming through at minimal increase in cost of construction to install the difference between a 14 and 16. but the 14 inch is an option. And this is conceptual. We need to gather field information to be able to make those design results occur for bidding and construction. Conceptual alternative number 7. Basically, this purple line represents the sewer that is existing. What conceptual alternative 7 does is it replacement or improvement of the existing pipe in its place with minimal disruption. The advantages of doing that: utilize technology for trenchless pipe installation, such as pipe bursting. Not having to dig the pipe up to replace it, but actually bursting it underground and utilizing pipe to do that. Open cut and trench of open cut replacement of pipe would occur in areas that there are no roads and homes that are actually wooded areas where the city already has easements. So therefore, we're not talking about going through residential backyards. We're not talking about ripping up roadways. These are isolated areas. Should keep costs low and cause minimal upset to the normal residential areas and commercial areas within the basin. Again, going with a 16-inch pipe will handle everything that the city potentially put through here in development. And the city standard for pipe is an SDR plastic, it's a PVC, and so what that means is you're going to get 50+ years of life out of that. I mean, more than likely 100, but they don't have any pipe that's reached 100 because it hasn't been in service that long. But more than likely, that's what you're looking at. So we're talking about long-term alternatives. And again, this particular alternative addresses all of the city's issues, including infiltration and inflow, in one project. It doesn't rely on multiple to be complete.
Mr. Murphy, just to help me understand this, how does pipe burst work? You're going from a 10 or 12 inch line, you're increasing the size of the pipe in the ground. What's the technology behind that to do that?
Yes, sir. It has what they do is they push a head. If you can imagine a ball that would be pushed through the pipe, and it ejects force outward in a circumference, circular direction in all angles. And so whatever pipe is there, it can be ductile iron, it breaks it, pushes it out, and the pipe is pushed in behind it. So therefore, you can go to a larger pipe size. I will say that there may be some challenges going from a 12 to a 16 in pipe bursting. There are some areas where it will not be feasible. We just don't know that at this time. So there again, going to our next slide, which will be our opinion of probable cost, we'll show conservative numbers, we'll show a contingency based on the overall project expected expense, and then be able to accommodate that going into the design. Figure out these unknowns and find solutions that will keep costs down. Leading into that, opinion of probable cost to complete the conceptual alternative number 7 was 1.83 million with a 10% contingency of about $166,000. I will say that this is the least expensive conceptual option because it handles everything in one. There were options that were less expensive on their own, but they didn't take into consideration the bottlenecks that would have to be replaced throughout the system, and also taking the capacity away from other basins itself, which would hinder its development. And so the city would be passing along an issue for another day to be reevaluated.
Assuming we do this, is it a safe assumption or that there would not be any issues once we replace the pipe that far?
A lot of I&I issues are actually at the service connections. So they're gonna, it will be something that will continue to have to be done. However, in replacing the pipe or doing cure in place, these connections will be located and if there is an issue, can be addressed at that time. So there will be a few unknowns even at that point. However, going with these larger pipes in the 16-inch with the work that's already been complete, the prioritization of the I&I only becomes an issue with reducing the cost of the plant. The pipe will be able to handle it. The overflows will stop.
So you're gonna do about 3.75 million
Yes.
across to it. Okay.
Any other questions on this? The next evaluation we were tasked with was the Bear Branch Pump Station. The city and ESG have known about some potential issues with this, the capacity of Bear Branch Pump Station, and then the potential growth in this area. This map gives you an idea of Bear Branch Pump Station here, with House and Lake Country Club here. Flow gravity feeds to the pump station and is pumped up to a gravity system that gets to the Perry Parkway pump station. And part of what we were tasked at was to take a look at potential growth in the Bear Branch pump station, but also look at potential impacts that may result as growth occurs in Bear Branch at the Parkway pump station. And when you pump it from one to the other, you need to account for things that may occur there, so that any unknowns are eliminated as much as possible. The areas here were coordinated with city staff on potential development that may feed the Bear Branch pump station. And what we are looking at, I apologize for that error, but roughly over 500,000 gallons a day more of flow that could potentially come through the system based on 1,500 homes over the next 25 years. These are projections that were coordinated hand in hand with city staff. Future projections that may occur at Perry Parkway pump station as a result of what may happen in Bear Branch. You're looking at the potential of 1,800 homes over the next 25 years. Potential flow increase to the system of over 1,000 gallons per day with the peak at 1914. So really, what does this mean? The Parkway pump station and 10-inch force main that are existing now were designed to handle 1,000 gallons per minute of flow. Based on everything that happened at Bear Branch and potential development in the Parkway area, you would need 1,300 gallons. So this was an identification of potential issues that may occur in the future. It doesn't mean you have to do them now, but we wanted to make sure that the city understood that when you start sending more flow from Bear Branch, at some point you'll have to address it at Parkway pump station.
If a pipe's holding all it can hold on the gravity system, how much greater capacity does it have when you pump it?
When you pump through a force main, you're forcing it through a pipe, and you try to have the velocities roughly about 2 to 6 feet per second. A 12-inch pipe actually can handle roughly around, I believe, in a force main, 1,400 gallons a minute in a 12-inch pipe. But the gravity system, because it's not being pumped or forced through the pipe, it's much less. It's around 676 gallons a minute. So it's considerably less because you're not forcing it through the pipe. We looked at several conceptual alternatives for potential improvements to the Bear Branch system. Currently there's a 6-inch force main that is conveying flow from Bear Branch to Parkway. That may need to be upgraded based on future land development. We're looking at a 12-inch would handle it. You could abandon the 6-inch in place, or another alternative would be able to install an 8 or a 10-inch force main parallel to it and utilize both of the force mains. There is somewhat of a cost difference between an 8 and 12-inch pipe. So we're looking at keeping costs down, not knowing how much development will actually occur. Potentially go with an 8-inch pipe that can be used in tandem with the 6 inches that were ever needed. That way you're not abandoning infrastructure in the ground and you're utilizing infrastructure that you've already paid for. Those are some of the alternatives that we looked at. There are some bottlenecks in the system, and what I mean by bottleneck is we have an 18-inch pipe flowing into a 12-inch pipe back into an 18-inch pipe. And so that 12-inch pipe is backing flow up. It is causing a restriction in the system. And so what some of these other alternatives would be required to do is to make sure that the pipe sizes aren't restricting flow and flowing properly to Parkway.
How many people we talking about?
Well,
Small, right?
smaller pipe, we have a 12-inch. Now that would need to go to a 16-inch. We're talking about 6,200 feet that would need to be replaced. There's also some 12-inch that needs to be replaced with 18-inch, and that's 4,300 feet. And replace, upgrade really an existing pump station at Parkway to meet the 1,300 gallons a minute that future development will require. Now, I would like to say again, this is not tomorrow. We're talking about over projections of a 25-year period. But growth is occurring, and in a proactive stance, the city staff has given us direction to proceed in. We want to make sure that the city was aware of all the potential options that are available and the impacts that may occur because of development in the future. Opinion of probable costs for these alternatives are given here. These are not all combined. Since there are alternatives, things that can be done, as opposed to number one and number two are addressing the same issue. It's just which one do you want to go with, and that would be something that would be handled more in a design phase once more information became available. But you can see the cost difference between putting in a 12-inch and putting in an 8-inch. Replacing influent gravity sewer with a 16-inch, that's now a 12, and replacing the effluent gravity sewer, that's an 18-inch. Those are separate items. They are the existing 12-inch, and so they would need to be upgraded to accommodate future growth, and those are the prices for each. And then replace the pump, but just upgrade the station at Parkway, similar to Baldwin Park, $660,000. Again, I truly understand with everything that potential development may occur inside the city limits, that there are some unknowns. And we have coordinated extensively with city and ESG staff to make sure that we eliminate as many as possible and given as many alternatives to accommodate future growth that we possibly can.
I think the reality is that if we don't do this, we can't grow. I mean, you're basically maxed out with what you can do. So if we're going to continue to encourage growth in that area, there's not very many alternatives other than septic tanks, I mean, to be honest.
Yes. That is a reality.
We've been talking about big old lots.
That's what I say is, you it's not a real alternative, but that's the only alternative you have unless you know, build for the future, and that's what we've gotta do.
Well, the system's at capacity now.
That's what I say, yeah.
Licenses, right, that's all, we can't use pine, whatever we call it, you know. But the fact is, full.
Any other questions? I do know a lot of information. If you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call or email me. I'd be more than happy to meet with you, go over these, make sure that everybody understands what the tax is. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anything further on that? You got one?
Not right now.
Fort Knox, here we go.
3C, Department of Economic Development, 3C wants to propose Western District draft ordinance, Mr. Smith.
Mayor, Council. Based on our discussion at the last work session pertaining to the establishment of a restaurant district downtown, you have before you tonight a proposed boundary map for that ordinance and also a proposed draft ordinance associated with establishing that district. We'd like to think that the ordinance that we're proposing is very concise. Mr. Waters did an excellent job putting it together. But it outlines exactly what we had talked about in regards to this district. Whereas it would essentially allow, within the district, there was the light blue. We superimposed the proposed restaurant district on top of the existing downtown development district, just kind of give you all a frame of reference. But allowing patrons to our downtown within the light blue area to have open container 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to midnight. And again, there are some significant restrictions associated with this. It would allow patrons to leave licensed businesses that serve alcohol with a no larger than 16-ounce plastic cup with alcoholic beverage in it. And they cannot leave the district once they have it. They can only have one when they're out and about. But we think this would allow for help us build community downtown, and encourage, I guess, cross-pollination is probably not the best way to put it, but cross-pollination between the different types of businesses downtown. And further, it will help incentivize, we think it'll help incentivize the development of restaurants downtown, the development of possible other types of entertainment establishments. It'll also help from an administrative standpoint in regards to events and that type of thing. Instead of having to go through the approval process, it would simply be allowed during most events. So I hope you had a chance to review the ordinance. Again, we think it's pretty simple what we're asking for here. We think it's a great idea. We think it'll help bolster the downtown district and encourage development downtown. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
This is similar to what Savannah does now.
Yes, sir. And a lot of communities are going this way, are heading in this direction.
Cambridge has done the same thing with about the same size footprint. When I looked at it, it was about the same number of blocks and everything.
Yes, sir.
So it's critical for their area, so. Go this way.
You can see here, Mr. Hunt, are you talking about how far does it go towards I-75? It stops basically north side drive, yes, sir.
If I may, one of the other questions that came up is that if you did this, would this restrict this option to other type of areas in the city? And the answer on that would be no. We're recommending here as a starting point, because that's where there's been the most interest in everything, but could you have some other sections, for example, the Ag Village area, everybody know what I'm talking about there, as that starts to develop, that could potentially be one of those things.
But it could still be done on a per case basis.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying, every single time, it had to come back to you all, and you all would have to determine if it makes sense, and that's what you want to do. The other thing is that nothing in here would require any of the merchants, property owners, or anything that they would have to accept folks coming in. You know, that was another one of the questions that came up. You know, you just have the sign there, but like no food, you know, like they have sometimes now, you know, and that still holds. Nothing forces any property owner or business or whatever to participate or have to accept that.
This is only addressing city right away.
Correct.
Public realm.
Public realm.
Yeah, that's right. Like, so our parks downtown would allow it.
Questions? Thoughts, council? Mr. Saxon?
Yes.
Consensus to move forward?
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Gilmore, anything under item 3 for items for review and discussion that you need to address? We haven't already. Item 4, council member items. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker? No. You find the rest? Okay.
Yeah, I had one item I had, over in the community, David Wallace complained about on Guinness Street, there's a lot of noise on, might be a Christmas TV and that, he's saying that, noise just gets louder and louder and it goes over to midnight. So he wanted me to bring it to the floor, so I did.
Chief Lynn?
Yes, sir.
Sounds like an opportunity.
Yes, sir. If it's on the weekends, we've already been working on it. If it's other days of the week, then if you'll let me know that.
I'm thinking on the weekend.
We've already been addressing it on the weekends, apparently not to his satisfaction, but we're working on it.
Also, I mentioned to, my assistant manager about the, recycle pickup still having a problem with it, you know, I mean, up on Hilltop, and I mentioned to him that, he's gonna look into it.
Please make sure any of those types of issues we know about. That's, really is critical. Mr. Gilmore? Yes, sir. Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir, I do have one item. Saturday, starting at 7 o'clock in Rozier Park, we're having a Saturday cinema series, our first one of the year. We'll be showing Coco. It's a free event. We encourage everyone to attend. Bring your blankets, chairs, whatever. The movie will start once the sun goes down. It should be an excellent event. Thank you.
Ms. White? Item 5, department head items. Ms. King? You? Ms. Warren? Mr. Wood?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. We do have one item. Mayor and council, just wanted to, I know it's kind of early, but go ahead and let you know so we can get it on your calendars. But the Perry Housing Team decided that the fall neighborhood cleanup this year will be in the Smoke Avenue area. That's between Swift Street and Perry High School, east of Macon Road. It will be Saturday, November the 3rd. Specific details to follow. And we are looking at some options and things that we can do to improve the program, and maybe look at doing some things kind of on a citywide basis, and then doing one specific neighborhood as that particular cleanup. But those details will follow.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Guy?
Just one reminder for the audience, we have 2 more Friday nights left for the free disc golf clinic. Those volunteers that have been showing folks have been averaging about 30 folks per Friday. And I'll share that again tomorrow night for the viewers.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Lynn?
Nothing tonight, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Parker?
Nothing tonight, sir. Thank you.
Our next meeting is tomorrow night. We have 3 councils at 5 upstairs, the council meetings at 6 down here. And just as a reminder, everything, all of our meetings are open to the public. If there's nothing else to come before us at this time, I'll entertain a motion if we go into executive session for pending litigation.
So move.
The motion is there, second. Motion is second. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all for your interest and participation.